Okay, now we're live. So, hi YouTube, hi Facebook, and it's been a long coaching day, and I have a simple set of ideas today all around one subject: commitment and accountability. Now, this is a subject that I cover with Master Coach University students for 8 weeks on end, so it's not something we can definitely comprehensively talk about in just a couple minutes. But I wanted to share a couple concepts that came up today that one of my students, one of my mentees, asked me about. I want to talk about that, and I also want to start with discussing this thing I got in front of us here called commitment. So this is a lemon, if you haven't figured that out already. And you might think, okay, looks like a perfectly normal lemon. Here's the problem. You buy this at the store, or my wife bought this at the store, and looks okay, looks fresh, looks fine. But today I cut into it. I said, I'm gonna use this lemon, and here's what I got. It's mostly rind. This thing is like, I mean, that's, it's half of it's just this white useless stuff. I'm not gonna get any lemon juice out of that. And it's like, you see it from this side, it's like, this is perfectly good lemon. This is really, really, healthy. It's fine, and they genetically engineer these things with rinds like this, just so, the bugs don't get into the lemon, so they can protect their crop, right? But that's a bad deal for me as a customer. So the image I got versus the actual result I got, these are two different things. Interested so far, this looks good, I'm ready to go ahead and invest, I'm excited, I'm about to get my lemon juice. No, you're not going to get anything. I'm going to barely be able to get a teaspoon of lemon juice out of this thing. That's a bad deal. So on the outside, looks nice and shiny and lemony, looks yellow, and looks perfectly healthy, and on the inside, not so good. This is not the kind of experience I want for my client. This is not the kind of experience I want for people I'm relating to in my life. This is not the kind of experience I want to create for students of ours at Master Coach University. This is the last thing I want to see. This is a lack. I mean, look. And by the way, isn't this the experience that we get sometimes, though, from people we work with or products that we buy? It's like, on the outside, they did a really great marketing job. It looks like it's exactly what you want, and then by the time you get to the center of it, to the actual experience, to the actual value that you're supposed to be getting, you get very little. It's like, you get, closer that you get to the center of this lemon, the more of a lemon it becomes, basically. You got a lemon of a deal, though, there. So it's like, okay, it's all an image. It's a fraud. It's a scam. And this is not much of an experience for a customer, and it doesn't show much experience, or it doesn't show much commitment from the vendor that's creating this relationship in my book. So I'm pissed off about this lemon, but I wanted to set that aside as kind of an example, though, of the difference between image and commitment, real accountability in how you serve a customer, and also I think that translates through to the experience that your client has if you're coaching them, or you're leading them, or you're influencing them as well. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So this here is my folder. This is and I think I've got the right label. Yeah, okay, so you can see the label on my folder here. It says Ritual. Ritual. This is my Ritual folder. Inside of this folder We'll just open it up for a second. Inside of this folder, this covers everything I do to prepare for clients. Everything that I go over, everything I read, everything that and my affirmations, my beliefs that I'm embodying for my sessions. I mean, I did this today before I got started with my sessions, right? I did this yesterday before I got started with my sessions. And you can see, well, I'll get to that in a second. Well, I'm going to set that aside. But this folder here, and all the contents of it, I was in a bit of a rush Sunday, the day before my first coaching of the week. That happens Monday. I was in a bit of a rush Sunday to get out of my house because we had a hurricane that was bearing down on us, and we were getting ready to go to a more substantial home that was concrete block, and it's my sister's house, and so we were going to be guests in that home, and I was going to run my sessions from there if we had electricity to do so. So I forgot this ritual folder. I remembered everything else. I'd printed out all my sessions, and I'd backed everything up. I brought batteries. I'd bought a bunch of batteries for my devices. So I had like 6 different ways to actually be able to run these sessions, but I forgot my ritual folder. And I need that, or you would expect I would need that if I'm going to go through all my preparation to get ready for my coaching session, so I'm in the right state of mind, what I would call a coach's state, or a coach's state of mind, right? So I forgot that. Monday morning, we have no power. There's no internet. I have no cell signal, not because the cell tower was down, but just because AT&T sucks. And at least it sucks in my neck of the woods. And I'm, I need to run sessions. I actually missed a session because I literally could not, I couldn't run it because there was just no way to make the connection. But then I had a training coming up, and luckily my sister's boyfriend, he has a generator in his house. We got the generator running. The Wi-Fi is running on the generator power, and so I set up my laptop. I'm on battery because we can't plug anything else in because it'll burst the generator or wreck the generator. I get a little wired headset on there. I bring everything up. I try to sign into GoToMeeting, and I'm getting ready for everything. And there's all these like stack of cards that could easily fall at any time, right? But I'm committed to run my training session. I have the capability to do it, so I'm going to go for it, right? And so I'm about to get into the right mindset to run this training session. I've got about 15 other coaches, 17 other coaches that were going to show up to this training session. Some of you might be in Master Coach University, and you know what I'm talking about because you might have been there. And I'm like, okay, it's time to get into the right state of mind, and I'm looking for this. I'm looking for my ritual folder, and it's not there. It's nowhere to be found. And I'm like, whoops, I forgot my ritual folder. And for a second I was a little disappointed, but then I stopped and I thought, you know what? This ritual I've been doing for 18 years, 17 years. Same ritual, over and over and over and over and over again, daily. Not daily, but at least weekly, right? And so I thought, I got this thing memorized. I could easily produce the ritual that's in this folder. I could easily do all of these things that is in that ritual by memory. This is no problem for me. This entire folder, everything that it talks about, everything that's in it, all of these affirmations, all of these processes that I go through, it's all up here because I've just done it so many times. It's just a reflection of my commitment to the clients that I work with and the students that I work with to, be in an empowering mindset, right? You can even see, it's funny, I looked at this yesterday. You can see, not all of these, some of these are a little newer, but you can see some of, let me just find a good one for you. Here, this one's perfect. Let's look at these. These are great. You can actually see, like, this this is my values list that I review. You can literally see like rips in the paper, and the paper is like aged. Here's one. This one is such a mess that it's turning into tissue paper. I had to tape this rip in it. That's probably happened like 5 years ago. You know, I should probably have all of this in digital form at this point, but it's not. I'm old school. I'll just use the paper, but I definitely should have it on the iPad nowadays, I suppose. So I should definitely do that as well. But these are so old and so well used that they're falling apart. But again, I don't need these because I've committed them to memory, right? And so I went ahead and I did my entire ritual, no problems. And I went ahead and ran the training session. And about 20 minutes in, the generator died, and I lost connection because, you know, obviously the modem lost power. And so for 20 minutes, I worked on just getting back reconnected. And luckily our students were still pretty much there, and then, you know, we fired up the generator again, we finished the whole training session, and it was ended up being a bit of a success, especially considering that we were in the middle of a hurricane for most of the day, and nobody had power and everybody was being flooded. I mean, look at Jacksonville, had literally historically record flooding that day. But I still ran that training session because of my commitment to do it. I still was ready for it, fully prepared, and it performed as well as I needed to because I ran my ritual without this stuff, because I didn't have my ritual folder, because I've been committed over years and years, literally over a decade, almost 2 decades now, to do what I know produces the results for our students and my clients. That's the basis of that. And the last experience I want any student that I work with to have, any mentee that I work with to have, any client that I'm going to work with, any enterprise that is sponsoring coaching within my team or that I'm providing, the last experience I want them to have is, this looks really nice, but whoops, it's all marketing. It's all bullshit. It's all sizzle. It's all a fraud. There's nothing in the center. This is the last experience I want them to have. And so these are some of the things that I've done in order to make sure that I provide the real experience, not just some pretty outward-looking lemon of a deal, basically. So you don't want your clients to have that experience, and you want to make sure that you ritualize everything that's necessary for your clients to have a phenomenal experience. And that just means you do it again and again and again and again and again until you just want to throw up doing it again, because you know it so well, you're so bored of it, you're so tired of it, it's the last thing. I mean, you think really I'm that excited about doing my ritual? I mean, it feels good to do, so it's somewhat I'm somewhat motivated to do it. But if I never do this ritual again, I will really be fine, because I've done it so much. But I just know that's just the commitment that I have to the students and clients that I work with. Okay, now there's one thing to be committed and provide great service, but what I found out, gosh, about a decade ago now, was that no matter how great I am for a client or for somebody that I teach or somebody I work with, no matter how wonderful I show up as, if my student or my mentee or my client doesn't show up with the commitments that they need to show up with, that they haven't shown up with yet, they're not going to get the results. Because ultimately, they got to produce the results. I'm in an advisory relationship, a mentoring relationship, a coaching relationship. So it's more than just me. Like, I'm not just building something for them. I'm not doing it for them. They're doing it as a partnership with us, right? So my commitment is great, but they also have to have commitment. So yes, I can produce this in myself, and I think that's the first stage of mastery of commitment, is like you embodying it yourself. But as a coach, as a leader, as an influencer, as somebody who's going to produce a result or an impact on the world, you need the world to actually be your partner in this, not just like say, wow, that's really impressive what you did. So now it's not just my commitment, it's not just your commitment, it's your client's commitment. It's my student's commitment that I got to be concerned about as a leader, as a coach. I've got to cause that to happen in them. And look, it's not just like it's all on me to do that, because they have to make the choice as well, but I'm responsible for their commitment. So how that happens in a coaching relationship is something called accountability. Because look, if my clients want something but they're not committed to it, they're not going to get the result. If they are committed to it but they're stopped in producing the results of that commitment, in other words, they have a commitment but there's something stopping them that's preventing them from getting where they want to go, no matter how much commitment they have, they're not going to get they're not going to get the gold. They're not going to get to the center of this lemon either. You're going to have to put some serious pressure on that, right? So I hate to come back to that, but it's my metaphor for the day, basically. Anyway, so accountability is what provides that. Ultimately, if my client is committed to something and they aren't getting the result, I know there's something stopping them from that result. And the only way that I can really cause a breakthrough with that and cause that commitment to turn into something that's beyond what they would have had without me in the first place, actually making myself valuable, is this thing called accountability. So I need to hold them accountable for the commitment, and also hold them accountable for whatever breakthroughs they need to create for themselves so they bust through that wall. And this could be fear, this could be laziness, this could be apathy, this could be limiting belief in themselves. This could be just a conversation saying, I'll do it later, just a procrastination conversation. I mean, I don't know what that is, but there's got to be accountability for them transforming that. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If you're a student of mine, you know this. I mean, this is old news for you. So, and not to get into the whole technique around accountability today, but that is a critical aspect of your clients' commitments turning into real results. So I got a text today from a mentee of mine, and he was asking about accountability. So I thought this would be a perfect place to bring up this question. And so he says, I just printed out his text. He says, "Hey Jeff, is it true that as a coach, we should never hold people accountable for results, but only for their behaviors?" In other words, accountability for actions, not for results. For example, instead of asking how many contacts will be made this week, ask about how many dials. Basically just saying, hey, they can control their behavior of dialing the phone, but they can't necessarily control how many contacts they make or how many sales they make or something like that, right? So this is my response to them. I'm going to read it to you, but I'm also then afterwards I'm going to explain it a little bit more fully. So here we go. So again, the question is, just to restate the question, I'll just go through the whole thing. Is it true that as a coach we should never hold people accountable for results, just for their actions, just for their behaviors? Here's my answer. No. You can hold them accountable for results or actions. You can hold them accountable for actions, or you can hold them accountable for results. You can hold them accountable for both, with the understanding that results are a much taller order. They're a much bigger game than just actions. The majority of the time, I'd advise the client to first commit to actions rather than results, until the results that they are achieving, the result that my client is achieving, are so predictable that they can reasonably commit to results with the knowledge and expectation that they're in control of that result, that they actually can pretty much guarantee the result if they take the action that they need to take, right? So sometimes when somebody's just starting out, they're really not ready to commit to results. It's just it's a wet dream for them. Okay, so you probably want to first hold your client accountable for actions. Have your client first be accountable for actions, especially if it's a new area for them. They haven't taken action on it before. If you have a client where they're like, I produce these results all the time. I know every time I spend an hour doing this, I produce X result. Or every time I take this one, I have this conversation, I will get this result. Fine, then you can hold them accountable for results. But if it's usually my clients, and probably your clients as well, if they're making new commitments to you, they're probably associated with new results or new areas of their life or new jobs that they're doing. It's a new impact zone for them. It's a new area that they're trying to transform in their life. It's either an area where they're challenged, where they're not producing any great results yet, or it's an area where they're already great, but their desire is to go way beyond anything that they thought possible before, way beyond what they're currently producing in their life. So, in that case, I don't want to hold them accountable for the result right away necessarily, because they're green, they're new at this. I want to hold them accountable for just the action. So I'd ask them, okay, I know you got this result to make $10 million, and you know what actions you need to take in order to produce that result. Okay, fine. But instead, since you haven't even got close to $10 million yet, what I'm going to suggest is that you commit to the first couple actions that you absolutely know you can take that will move you in the direction of producing that result. And maybe you'll get that result before our next session. And if that's the case, congratulations, we'll have a party, right? But even if that doesn't happen, you can still know that you flat out delivered on what you know you have control over, which is these actions that you could take. So I want you to commit to this and this. Are you willing to commit to that? Great. And you know you can do that. Is that correct? Yes. Fine. Right? That's committing to actions. That is way easier than this other piece, committing to results. This one is really tough, especially when your client is first working with this piece, okay? So this is a different story. Now, even if a new client or a client who's working on something brand new for them, and they really don't even know what it takes to produce the result, if they want to commit to that result, and that's their choice, and you've warned them the way that I just discussed, like, hey, you don't even know what it's going to take to produce that yet. Let's maybe take a step back. And they're like, no, I want to commit to these results. I want to go for it. I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to make this happen. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to come back. I'm going to have $10 million in the bank, right? Like, I would not stop them. I wouldn't tell them, no, you can't commit. I won't allow that. That's unrealistic. That's unreasonable. That's stupid. That's you don't know what you're talking. Like, no, that's not my place as the coach. As a mentor, maybe I'm going to, pull them back a little bit, like as a consultant, if it's an area of knowledge for me. But if it's not that, and I'm just there to coach you, I'm not there to pull you back. I'm not there to judge you. I'm not there to break you down or hold you back. I'm there to support you. So if you're with your both eyes open, you realize you have no clue whether you can produce that result or not. We've already covered that, and you still want to commit to the result? Okay, go for it. 9 times out of 10, by the way, your client is not going to produce that result. 9 times out of 10, in my experience at least, they don't get the result. That's okay. They made a bold commitment. They failed in that commitment. You can still hold them rigorously accountable for producing that result and kick their butt with that accountability conversation around that, because they still committed to it. Okay, that's your job as the coach, to be rigorous with them, assuming they gave you permission for that and they understand what that entails, right? 9 times out of 10, they're not going to produce that result. But guess what? They will shoot for the moon, and they'll still be in the stars. They will have taken tons of action. They'll be way beyond anything that would happen if they hadn't committed to anything or hadn't committed to that result, probably. Not always, but probably. That's like half the time or more than half the time. So that's still progress, even if it's not perfection, even if it's not the result that they hoped for. Just make sure that when your client commits to a result that's brand new for them, that they're not like, 'cause sometimes a client will commit to something, they're really not committing to it, they're just telling you their dream. They're like, I want to commit to making $10 million, and they're really not committed to it. They really just want it, and they think that there's some kind of magical, mystical thing that'll happen if they commit it to you. They think it'll just like happen for them because of the guru power that you have as their coach. And of course it doesn't. So, and a lot of times your client, if they're in that kind of magic, Buddha mode where they look up to you like the guru, or they think the process has some kind of mystical, magical power, clients will think that sometimes. They'll come back and they will have done nothing. They're just sitting around just waiting for the results to happen because they just figured it would happen because they committed. And that's where a little education on your part is probably important to offer them at that point. But still be rigorous with them if they commit to the results, because they committed their responsibility. And I would warn them. That would be the final warning I'd give them. I'd say, look, you just said you didn't know if you could produce this or not. You're still committing to it. And I want to tell you, like, you need it. When you're committed to this, that means you're willing to do whatever it takes to produce this result. And you're going to be unstoppable in that. Is that true? If they say yes, I'm like, great, but I'm going to hold you accountable for that. If you don't produce a result, you'll be accountable. We're going to have a serious conversation. It's not going to be comfortable. Or, you know what, if you're not unstoppable with this, you don't do whatever it takes to produce this result, then we're going to talk about what held you back and what got in the way. That is not an easy conversation to have. So are you sure you don't want to just commit to the actions? Give them kind of one last chance for gas on that one. All right, so that's the big difference. So generally speaking, I advise that when somebody's just getting started, commit to actions, not results. And once they know they've created predictable results, great. Let them commit to results. That's fantastic. But I generally find that this is a pipe dream for a lot of clients, especially when they're new to that result area. But if you've got a high-powered client who knows what they're doing, or they're just really bold and they're going to do whatever it takes, okay, that's fair enough. So if you got any questions about this, feel free to pop it into the chat. I'm happy to answer those. But, and of course, like I said, accountability is a whole realm unto itself. There's an art and a science to accountability coaching that we don't have time to cover here in this short little live stream. But I did want to just cover that answer because I thought it was something that comes up for a lot of coaches. And also just the final piece around commitment. Just remember, and what I'd leave you with today is don't even think that you're going to be able to powerfully hold a client accountable for their results and their commitments and their actions if you haven't embodied the commitment that you are to them, that you've promised yourself to be to them. Don't let the promise that you are for your client be the shiny outside of a lemon that turns into nothing on the inside. It's all marketing. It's all salesmanship. It's all rind. It looks pretty, but it's hollow. That is a hollow victory, I think. Can you make money doing this? Sure. But, if you're a coach that has some ethics, that's committed to your clients and really cares, I don't think you're going to be able to sleep at night. And I don't think you'll be able to do it comfortably. So this whole accountability thing starts with your commitment and your follow through on that. That doesn't mean you're always going to be perfect. That doesn't mean that what you promise is always going to turn out to be nothing but juice. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But if you know that this is what your practice or what your coaching or what your mentoring or what your book or what your seminar or what your training or what your education or whatever it is that you're promising, your product looks like to your client, that's what they're experiencing, and that's the results that you're delivering or the lack thereof, you have work to do. You have a lot of work to do, and it's not just on salesmanship and marketing. It's on your commitment and your follow-through on those commitments and figuring out what it's going to take to deliver that. And it's really unfortunate that so many coaches, so many mentors, so many leaders, so many influencers are falling short on this. They're really good at convincing people that they're going to deliver, and then they don't. And they wonder why they're having to work so hard to produce the students or the clients that they had last year. They can't grow it. My organization grows in students every year, grows in clients every year, not every year, but many years. And I think one of the big reasons, there's a lot of reasons that we're not going to have time to get into, but I think one of the big reasons is that I don't leave people with nothing but rind on the lemon. I leave them with at least knowing I'm committed, and even if they don't get the result perfectly up front, which sometimes happens, because I'm not perfect, and my service isn't perfect, that they'll know I'm committed to producing that result. Our team, they know our team is committed to producing that result as well. And when they're left with that, they know that we're their partners and we're not just fooling around. We're not just BSing them with a shiny lemon rind and no lemon in the middle. That is not what they're left with. So even if there's a struggle at times, which can happen in coach-client relationships, we will do whatever it takes to follow through for them. We will do whatever it takes to support them. And by the way, sometimes that's not easy, because it's like we feel kind of guilty that we didn't deliver exactly as they expected. Not necessarily that we promised, but they had a set of expectations that might have been a little diluted, right? And so it's like I feel guilty about it. I want to really serve them, but guess what? Now I've got to still be their coach. So I can apologize for what didn't work out. I can recommit to what my commitment is to them, but then at the same time, I'm not going to let them off the hook for their commitments. I just had a conversation like this the other day. I think I mentioned this in another live stream where the client was like, well, I'll try it out, we'll see how it goes. And I was like, that's not acceptable. And by the way, the whole entire conversation before that was like, I'm sorry you had that experience. I know that didn't work. We're going to make it better. Let's work together on that. Here's what I'm going to do. And I went way above and beyond, gave her extra time and, just all this kind of stuff, right? To make it right with them. And then she's like, well, I asked her, how does that sound? Does that sound like that'll work? And she's like, I'll try it. I'm like, no, that's not okay. Not okay, not acceptable. And so I went from service, which was from the commitment I had to them, I got to make this right with you. I'm so sorry that this is what you're experiencing, to going right back to accountability. I'll try is not going to be good enough. Because I know what try looks like in the human nervous system. It's there's always an excuse. There's always a reason why it didn't work out. And that's not acceptable for my clients. And even if I'm trying to make them happy and they're not, it's sorry, I got to serve you. I'm really not even sorry. I'm not sorry. It's now it's time for me to serve you in this way. So I had to balance that service relationship and the commitment I had there with the coaching relationship and the commitment I had there. I had to be both in that conversation. And hopefully most of the time I don't have to worry about the service because it's taken care of, right? I've automated that, or I've got a team that's providing that, or I've already provided that, and there's no apologies because there's nothing to apologize for. And then I can just be the coach for them. That's not always the case because it's not always perfect, right? But at least you have a drive that says, if I'm making these big promises, I'm delivering as big as I possibly can at this point. I'm going to grow to the point where I know all those promises are delivered on, and I will make it right with the client if it doesn't work out. Hope that makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.